this is Ethan Shain, alongside a very special guest, GJ Odelohouse. Say hi to our listeners, GJ.
Hi, I'm JJ, and I'm a senior in the mechanical engineering program here, and I'm the president of the rocket team.
Yeah, so the way I see it is, the way you build machines that are governed by the laws of physics is actually very similar and relatable to the courtroom, which is governed by the rule of law. Now, what I want to talk about is the theory of legal convergence, what it is and how it plays out in the real world. The theory states that as a consequence of globalization, Western businesses and legal practices are becoming universal. This means that in countries with less developed legal systems, Western legal practices would be integrated alongside the multinational corporations that do business there. So in countries which there are not currently trusted legal avenues to contest and confront grievances, multinationals would be incentivized to help develop institutional mechanisms to instill public trust that a fair legal outcome is possible as a result of the Western businesses that bring such legal practices with them. The primary legal concern of multinationals operating in countries with weak legal systems is the security of property against arbitrary government confiscation. The theory suggests that the promotion of Western legal practices tends to act as a catalyst for individuals seeking to assert their rights in the court system. By getting the courts to exercise making equitable decisions for businesses, this has a ripple effect for a country's legal system as a whole. And we see this all the time, right, GJ?
Yeah, we do. Kentucky's often only known for KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken. And it's clear that KFC has an incentive when working in international environments to protect its rights, both its copyright and its property, to ensure that its operations are still done smoothly.
And if they need to seek legal recourse in the countries that they're doing business in, they need to feel that there's legitimate institutions that will allow them to do so. However, the theory of legal convergence does not guarantee that Western businesses will bring Western legal practices with them everywhere they go. China is a very strong case study of how a country can push back against Western legal practices following the multinational corporations into a country. It is important to take note of the fact that multinationals moving to China have expanded into China without bringing Western legal practices along with them, especially considering the characteristics that China has as a country. For instance, following Mao and the Cultural Revolution from 1966 to 1976, the People's Republic of China had one of the least developed legal systems in the world. All this with 1.4 billion people to boot, and they are one of the most strong economic forces in the world today. There's a present disparity of development in areas in China, and GJ, you shed a little light on why this is beneficial for businesses, right?
Yeah, anytime that you have a very heavily developed area that has technology and has infrastructure and has knowledgeable, skilled employees, and you put that right next to an underdeveloped area that has cheap land, cheap resources, and cheap labor, you create this tremendous business opportunity because businesses can come in and they can conduct their operations at very low cost in these underdeveloped areas while still leveraging the benefits that developed areas bring to them. And they can wrap this all together into their products and services and then sell them to high-paying markets such as the United States and the rest of the Western world. So multinational companies have a very strong incentive to come into this Chinese environment even though the legal structures aren't really there to support their activities.
Yeah, as you were saying, with all these qualities, there's a conspicuous lack of political liberalization. China's legal system, therefore, has some major implications with us seeing how these multinational corporations interact there, and as well as how these corporations will continue to act as a whole moving forward. The People's Republic of China provides a very compelling counterpoint to the theory of legal convergence and shows the limitations of its influence. What we have seen from China is that multinational companies doing business in China tend to utilize extra legal negotiations to resolve disputes instead of even attempting litigation. It is actually a part of the common wisdom not to seek legal recourse. The system just does not operate in a way that foreign businesses feel incentivized to expect an amicable resolution in court. To prove this point, from 1997 to 1998, only 0.035% of administrative court cases had foreign businesses involved.
And you're right that this is common wisdom. A lot of multinational firms generally tend to view the Chinese legal system as being opaque and impassable and unfair. As a result, they have a tendency to explore extra legal avenues of action as opposed to direct litigation through the system. These extra legal avenues could be as simple as pressuring a local municipal leader, or perhaps even using a quid pro quo agreement to get a charge dropped. These charges are of significance to these companies because a lot of them are involved in actions that are kind of dubious legally.
Yes, and this is exactly what we saw in the case of the joint venture of a Chinese domestic firm and a multinational corporation that, whereas in the airport, some of the products of the multinational corporation were taken by the Chinese National Customs Agency and were then sold on the local market. They found out about this and they sought immediate legal recourse through the courts, but the courts ruled against them because they were reluctant to rule against a national agency like that. Instead, they sort of engaged in this quid pro quo, whereas they dropped an unrelated charge pending against this company in order for them to just forget about it, in other words. So we are seeing that these extra legal avenues are utilized even though there are significant advantages that multinationals operating in China have to feel in leveraging the court system, such as the fact that companies can leverage their investment in a local government, they have diplomatic pressure of the company's country of origin, and multinationals start one level higher up in the judicial system than domestic litigants would. For example, cases that would normally be heard in a lower level court start in an intermediate court. This is to help multinationals feel assured that judges are better qualified and less influenced by local protectionism. Despite all of this, it seems that multinational corporations prefer to simply take advantage of loopholes in Chinese law rather than contribute to improving it. This has prevented the legal system from being meaningfully impacted from Western influence. And we don't consider this negligent or unethical. It's just following the common wisdom. So you can't necessarily blame the businesses for not going and trying to assert Western influence legally speaking, because they're just following the money as businesses are expected to do. A key takeaway is you can't contribute to best practice institutions like the courts if you don't follow the best practices. To explain this another way, and I am quoting here, the People's Republic of China has been able to build and maintain its legitimacy through investment that keeps its economy growing and increases its prominence on the world stage because multinationals are willing to invest without strong legal guarantees and may opt for extra legal solutions. Yet even a few noteworthy administrative cases could promote change. This quote was taken from the article On Their Best Behavior by John Wager Givens, and this podcast discussion as a whole has been inspired by that same article. What does this mean for China's legal system? They have refused to develop is what it means. They use extra legal means as an institutional means to circumvent this development. An interesting point which perhaps legal convergence theory did not take into account is that multinational corporations are still willing to do business in countries even without the guarantee of a legal remedy, because it is still lucrative for them to practice without these guarantees. This speaks volumes to the power that the Chinese government demands to hold over individuals and corporations alike, with the knowledge that, even while maintaining this influence, corporations will still want to do business in China.